All right, everybody is coming on in.
What's up, everybody? How we doing?
Everybody,
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see.
Good afternoon from Texas.
How we doing down there, Jim?
Yeah, it's 76 degrees. Really good. Good golf weather.
You got the all clear to get out and swing them yet?
Not yet. Probably in about next week sometime. But I got to
Okay.
just ease into it. So
Awesome. Excellent.
at this
And-
stage in your lifetime, you don't want to make any mistakes.
No.
Yeah.
Take your time.
Yes.
Come back slowly.
Yes.
Absolutely. Anybody else getting out there and swinging them these days?
It's 70 degrees here in Dayton, Ohio.
Ooh,
So,
Oh,
how about
yeah.
that?
I know. So it's rare. I mean, it's February. We're not supposed to be golfing, but
Yeah.
I'll
No,
take it.
that's-
So unfortunately, I'm stuck doing some work, and I got an appointment at 4:00. But I might try and get in like 3 holes tonight.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So it's stealing right at this point in the year.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is all bonus.
Yeah, bonus golf, right?
Bonus golf.
Yeah,
Nothing
you're
like it.
playing with house money there, my man.
But I like to hear.
Yeah, we were saying that the other day, and like, this is not normal. Like, okay, with the global warming, and I'm not going to get political with anybody, but let's say we're a thing. There's some positives that happen with global warming also. It's not all negative. Golf
I mean,
is one of them.
let's not get too carried away, because we've definitely been known to have some snow hit, late March, even up into early April, and kind of rain on our parade a little bit. But yeah, today's it's not cold. It's mid 40s here. Sun's shining. We had some rain yesterday, but like this past weekend, Sammy and I went and played golf on Saturday, got to play 9 holes. Sunday was an even better day to play.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice to be able to get out and hit the sticks a little bit and, have a little fun with it. So,
Oh yeah, I recall many or a few St. Patrick's Day days where it was snowing. I mean, a couple of St. Louis Cardinals opening days that were snowed out, and that's
Yeah.
the beginning of April. So we're on the clear, but I'll take these days as they come.
no, in fact, this weekend I was thinking, they have St. Louis has a big Mardi Gras parade, and this past weekend was a perfect day for the parade. And Ryan and I, we used to go down to the parade all the time, and it seemed like every time it was raining, it was snowing, it was cold as can be. I can only remember like maybe 1 or 2 that were like decent weather, but this past weekend was beautiful. So
Yeah. That takes us back to a younger
stupider
version of us. I wonder what it'd be like to drink 25 beers today in a day. That seems excessive.
That was a different time, wasn't it?
I felt much better this Sunday than I would have the Sundays past. It's probably
Very
been 10
true.
years since I've gone down there. Maybe
Very
not
true.
10.
All right, so who's been watching the Netflix series? I just finished it up today.
Guilty.
Yeah,
No spoiler alerts. I haven't made it all the way through yet.
yeah. Don't divulge any info, but Brandon, what's your take been?
It's fun to watch. It's they keep reiterating the whole thing that like not everyone gets paid. There's a cut. It's been like this big theme that they put in every single episode. I've only watched maybe 4 of them, but I kind of like, yeah, I know you said that in the first one, but I mean, I think they're doing a pretty good job not being too biased one way or the other. I thought when I originally watched this, it was going to be like, oh, they're just going to bash Live Golf, right? But I think everyone, is. It's kind of unbiased, and I hate to say it, but a lot of those Netflix shows, you're like, it seems like it's biased. But for golf, it seems like it's they're doing a good job. These guys are trying to live their lives and make money doing it, and I don't fault I think the last one I watched was with what's his name, Ian Poulter, and I'm like, of course he'd do that. He's 46 years old. I mean, he's barely going to make any cuts on the PGA Tour. He's just past his prime. I mean, who wouldn't take something at the tail end of their career? And I get the whole political side of it too, but it's just really interesting. So I think everyone makes decisions based on those. What's your next best alternative? And his next best alternative was making probably nothing on the PGA Tour. So, like, okay.
Yeah,
You know, it's
working hard, making nothing. We're
Yeah.
working hard at the chance to make nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some great stories. I mean, I just love it. You know, you're getting kind of inside access into, you know, Justin Thomas. You know, he won the PGA Championship and he was sick and, you know,
Yeah.
wasn't playing his best stuff, right? And how many guys go out there and, you know, say, you know, start the week like, I've got it, like I figured it out, like, you know, I'm going to win this tournament. You know, everything's clicking, right? And they go out and they get a couple bad bounces, and the next thing they're like, you know, my game's gone, right?
Mhm.
And it looked like Justin Thomas was just trying to stick around. He's like, if I can just stick around, and that's what he did, you know. And he ended up winning the golf tournament. It's super cool, like those like little background stories.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that Justin Thomas wasn't feeling well, right? And then the Netflix
idea.
guys are following him, and he's going to, you know, Walgreens or whatever, being like, I'm just struggling, you know, and you know, and you talk about it like he doesn't have his swing, and you know, the next thing you know, he wins a major championship. I mean, that's pretty cool. You don't really get access to those, you know, background stories. You know, there's some great guys too. You kind of get the perspective of like Brooks Koepka. You know, he's kind of this, you know, a little bit of a rough and tumble, you know, like F this, F that, you know, and like I used to be great and I should be good. And then there's other guys. You get the Joel Damon guy who's just a bro, right?
Oh,
Like,
that's great.
you know, he's just a cool guy. Like he's like, I can never win, and you know, and you're like, man, that's like that self-deprecating or talk,
Yeah.
and you're like, you know, but you get it with Kevin Kisner too, right? He gets interviewed, and you know, they're like, can you win this week? And he's like, no. And they're like, why didn't you show up? And he's like, yeah, because they pay a lot of money for 30th place, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just perspective, right? You know, who's the other guy at he barely went. He's been on the PGA Tour for the longest time. I'll have to look him up, and his career earnings are like super high, and he just kind of stays out of the limelight and just tries to make
Charles
cuts.
Howell.
Yeah, Chucky Three Sticks, right?
Chucky Three Sticks. Yep.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
never
The
heard that.
third. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he just out there trying to make cuts, and he, you know, it's a great living, and it's probably not as stressful as the, you know, the other guys that are saying I can win. You know, even Joel Damon. I mean, you know, it's kind of funny, but he's playing to his personality, right?
Yeah.
And if you told him to go out there and act like Tiger Woods in his prime, he probably would be miserable. So
Yeah. Chucky Three Sticks. He's a live golfer now. So
Yep.
same kind of a deal, right? Tail end of his career, and he decides, you know, heck, I'm gonna go get the guaranteed money. He's got a kid I know that he's following around, that's starting to play some competitive golf, and it's like, all right, I'll go play fewer tournaments and make a bunch of money, and you know, not have to travel so much, and now I can go watch my kid play golf and help him out.
yeah,
Marina, I'm curious. You said you're watching it, right?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I've only watched 2 episodes so far, but one of the best things was that after Rory went into the gym after the event, the first day or whatever. Then comes JT and Jordan Spieth in. They start sort of joking around, and then they do all these exercises, which is really cool to see, because quite a few of them I say, hey, I'm doing that, you know.
Right.
But what was so strange in a way, you know, that they just played 18 holes under a lot of pressure, and you'd think they'd be completely exhausted, but they go straight to the gym. I don't understand that. I mean, don't they try to gain some sort of reset the body and rest? No, they go to the gym, do, you know, heavy lifting. So, but I really enjoyed the story about JT and just, Jordan Spieth growing up, and how their rivalry has been, and they're still best mates, and, you know, all these backstories, like Brendan said, is really cool to listen to.
I'm curious. So you said you saw the second one with Ian Poulter, right? Like what?
No, I haven't seen Ian Poulter yet. I saw.
Oh, you
Bruce
haven't?
Koepka.
I think that was the third one.
Oh, Koepka was the second one. Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, I mean, just regarding Poulter, obviously from being over in the UK, what are your thoughts on him not being able to be a Ryder Cup captain anymore? I mean, I feel like as a Euro, you know, for the Euro team, he was kind of endeared as a big piece of the Ryder Cup teams. Do you have any thoughts, feelings there?
Yeah, I think it's a sad story, the Ryder Cup, in a way. I think it's been completely devalued in a way. come Rome now in the autumn, and both sides. I mean, you still got a strong team in JT and Jordan Spieth, and you got several people there. Whereas, yes, we have upcoming chaps coming up, but all these old sort of Ryder Cup sort of favorites have been there for years and years and years. They're gone, like Westwood and Poulter and Stenson, who didn't want to do the captaincy and all that. They were also the personalities, and so it's gone a little bit sort of. It's just a shame, I find. But I can understand, like Brandon said. I mean, Ian Poulter, what is he, 47? He's not going to win anywhere. Why not take the money? So I don't blame him, but I thought it was a big step when Stenson said that he's not going to do the captaincy. I thought that was really, because that, I mean, at least here in Europe, you find it's a huge honor to actually do it, and it's part of your career to do it. And to then say, no, I'm not going to do it. I don't know how his money situation is nowadays. He lost a lot of money, didn't he, some years ago, investing it in a bad way. But surely he's not struggling for money, you'd think.
You wouldn't think.
You wouldn't
No.
think so. Because, yeah, I mean, I've always thought of it as the captaincy over there seems like that's such a regarded position. And just being on the team, obviously, but then the hierarchy of the captains and that being such a goal for those individuals, like a Poulter, like a Stenson, and following in that tradition, that, I mean, that just goes to show, how much everybody has. I shouldn't say everybody, but a price, I mean, that was, if you would have asked those guys, that was probably the most important thing on their radar now that they've accomplished so much in their careers. And now here somebody brings in a big blank check and writes it and wipes that off the table for them. It's kind of crazy.
Do you watch it at all in the States? I mean, do you have any coverage of the Live Tour there at all? I mean, we can watch it on YouTube, I think, here. I watched only a little bit on YouTube, but there's no coverage otherwise of the Live.
No, I think it was just.
It's on YouTube. They just signed a deal with the CW, but I don't know if is that on now? Like, can you watch on the CW at this moment? Because I think are they playing this weekend, I believe.
Let's look. I don't know. I was sidetracked with the Honda Classic. Yeah, so looks like March 31st is when
their next event.
Okay, so I think that's on TV. Okay, so they are playing this weekend in Mexico, Playa del Carmen.
Oh, they're playing to Mayakoba.
Yep.
What used to be the Mayakoba tournament,
Mm-hmm.
the Worldwide Technologies tournament,
WWT,
which is a St. Louis company,
which is no longer a thing. Yeah.
No, it's gone.
WWT is still very much a thing.
I think
Yeah,
the big
so.
I hope so.
The big thing will be the world rankings and getting into the. I mean, Augusta said, "Yeah, you're welcome," but how long can they? I mean, all those who won the Masters can come back there, but then the British Open. You also got the past winners, so DeChambeau and everybody can come along. But then the rest of the guys, in a year's time, they would have lost out on the world rankings. They won't be able to come, even though they say, "All right, you can come." So, for example, PGA, they won't have any rankings to get into the PGA Championship unless they are a past winner. So I think that's one thing that is going to be a bit.
I just saw something on Sports Illustrated today that I guess this year they decided PGA Championship and British Open or the Open Championship, they are allowing them to play, right? But they did mention that they're also taking, I forget what other ranking system. So, and I don't remember which one of those it was. Hang on, let me find this real quick if I still have it in my thing here. It was the hold on. I know this dead air isn't great.
Dead air.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're listening to you search on Google.
Yeah, I'm not even letting you look at my screen either.
Riveting podcasting. I guess we're not podcasting.
No, I don't see it. But it had to do with like the Latin American tour, maybe the Asian tour, something along those lines. Oh, here we go. Our new one new exemption category for the 105th PGA Championship was added as part of Wednesday's announcement. The top 3 players on the International Federation ranking list will be invited to compete. That's comprised of players on the Asian Tour, Japan Golf Tour, PGA Tour of Australasia, and South Africa's Sunshine Tour. So what I see there is that they're kind of opening the door to a slightly, a different ranking system where now maybe the Live Tour guys can go and get ranked on the Asian Tour, Japan Golf Tour, one of those tours, and make their way in if they don't have the world golf rankings. So I think that's probably going to be playing out in the future years, obviously, because right now all those guys still have their world ranking points. So the DeChambeaus, Patrick Reeds, they'll all get in, but just a way for them to get in the future.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, it's like they're not letting. I realize even like the Masters, where they're letting other people, past winners, but they're not letting anybody new in the club.
No,
if you're on the Live Tour, competition at the end of the day typically makes for a better product overall. So we'll see how this thing shakes out. It's kind of weird when when your competitor basically has a bottomless pit of money. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I don't see, if you look at the 4 majors as something completely independent of the PGA Tour, I don't see. You kind of want to see the best golfers in the world playing against each other, right? So if that ends up being that some are on the Live Tour and some are over here, but in those 4 events they end up playing against each other, I think it makes it even more exciting. There's already the drama of, when these guys are playing at the Masters this year, like, will Tiger get paired with Phil? Will something like that shake out? The TV wants that, right?
Oh, heck yeah.
I don't know if you followed. Did you follow the DP Tour when they were in the Far East, Dubai or Abu Dhabi or somewhere? And Patrick Reed was on the top of the leaderboard, and so was Rory. And they had some arguments on the range already, sort of, and then everybody was waiting. Are they going to be teamed up together in the last round? And they sort of really fought it to the last putt, and then Rory won. But and this is what it's going to be like,
What? So Patrick Reed is suing Rory, correct?
Yes.
What? Yeah. Why is he suing him? Just for?
I think there's multiple lawsuits going on in his defamation of character suit. So it's like against the Golf Channel. I know Brandel Chambly was subpoenaed. I think they said Rory was subpoenaed, some other golfers. I'm sure the PGA Tour, Jay Monahan, all, up to, I think it was $750 million worth of damages that they're looking to reap. So,
oh my God, he's the one who's an asshole.
All silliness
for calling him one. Right.
Yeah, all silliness.
So. He's such a weird dude.
It's funny. But over here, PGA Tour wise, we've had some pretty darn good golf being played as of lately. That Genesis was awesome to watch. The
great.
Waste Management was awesome to watch. I think that these elevated events, we've had 2 of them so far, or I guess maybe the Tournament of Champions was an elevated event too. But the Waste Management and the Genesis, those being the $20 million purses and those guys being mandated to play.
Yeah, that was cool.
So you have the best of the PGA Tour that will always be at these events. That's pretty awesome. It makes those events way more exciting.
Oh, for sure.
But I think the Honda Classic kind of got screwed this year with, I think everybody is gone from that. That's not a top tier player. I don't know if they have anybody in the top 20 that's even playing this week at the Honda, which makes it prime for the taking for a youngster playing like a Hayden Buckley, or
Minus
I'm not
one
even
today.
sure if Adam Long's playing in it, but like
Yep, he's
one of those
even.
guys, if they get in there and get hot, this is the time to go win.
Yep, yeah, both our boys are in there playing today.
So hopefully the prediction comes true this weekend. We've only got a few weeks left. Need that horse to run.
I want it to happen while you're down there at the.
That's true. I do want it
at
to
the
happen
TPC.
at the PGA or at the Players Championship, but maybe be cool if that was his second one.
I'm with the higher drama.
That would be
Is
that'd be awesome.
Is that a gambling state so you can use your DraftKings while you're down there?
I don't know, but I have a little cash on this week. Put a little cash on him last week. It didn't pan out, but I figured I should literally put my money where my mouth is if I think he's going to win in these next several weeks. So
Is that
Yeah.
the corporate 18 strong card, or is that the Jeff
No,
Pelzero?
this is the Jeff Pelzero.
Yeah.
Yeah, slush fund. Yeah.
Just siphoning off some of that 18 strong, all those extra bucks we have.
Well, actually, last week when I lost, that was the 18 strong corporate. But if I win this week, it was from the Jeff Pelzero slush. That's how that works.
That's a interesting accounting. I'm gonna get
Yeah.
Hogan on the phone.
Here, what's funny is this shows how different the field from last week was to this week. So I played DraftKings, regular DraftKings, but I never bet on anything. So I didn't really know what it meant when I saw like last week, Hayden, like to win, Hayden was plus, I think it was 20,000.
Probably.
I don't know, whatever it was, a $50 bet would win you $10,000 if he won
Dang.
last week. This week, a $50 bet wins like 2,300. So
Okay.
little bit of a difference in the field of how
So-
strong it is and
so-
his predictions to win, especially because that that he would have dropped down a little bit because he missed the cut last week. So
Right. Yeah, it's a bit watered down by about a fourth, or by
Quite a bit.
3/4, it sounds like.
quite a bit. So anyway.
Cool. So what's new in the world of Galfin Fitness?
Well, today we're talking about how to improve by putting your clubs away. And this was kind of prompted by a conversation I had earlier this week with Casey Cox that will be coming out on the podcast. The edit's being finished up in the next couple of days, which was kind of cool. We did our first ever in-person interview for the podcast in the studio. So like had cameras set up and everything. So we'll be putting this one on YouTube because it's being professionally done as a little bit of a test run. So Casey and I sat right here in this office and just talked about a lot of stuff. And you're going to see how lucky I am to be working side by side with this guy and how intelligent he is. And I give him trouble because I feel like he's almost like, he's kind of like Batman. Like people think that he's just this regular normal dude, but he's got all these things behind the scenes that he's doing that are pretty big deals that not many people really know about. So he's a biomechanist. He is the director of instruction at Old Warson, which is what most people around here know him for, is just giving golf lessons here in the pit or over at Old Warson. But he founded, and I don't remember what year he founded this, but him and another guy founded the Sports Science Solutions, which is his institute for basically data capture and testing of 3D motion capture for different sports. So primarily he works with hockey players and golfers, but they've done tennis, they've done baseball. And if you look up sportsciencesolutions.us, that's his website. And so they're collecting so much data on all these different sports and testing and force production and things like that. And so I give him trouble because I'm like, dude, you're kind of like Bruce Wayne. Like people think you're this guy, and then like behind the scenes, you've got all these crazy cool things. He's starting to work with TrackMan on for hockey, basically. So like right now, TrackMan in the baseball world has become a big thing where they've got TrackMan all around the stadiums. So they're tracking everything analytics wise of launch angles, bat speed, ball speed, spin, all of those different components. Obviously, that's tracked a ton in golf, but they're starting to do that with hockey too, where they're starting to, they want to start putting these systems in the different arenas so they can track that stuff for hockey players. And then they can ultimately, test equipment better, just like you test golf clubs with a launch monitor. You can test, shooting pucks. You can test, basically do fittings for sticks, everything that they do in golf. But they'll have all these different analytics. Casey's Institute has captured more data than almost anyone else on some of these different tests. So it's really neat to hear him then talk about how he implements that into his working with golfers. And what we talked about a lot in the episode is how important it is, like we talked about in our last Crew and A call, how important it is to know what you're trying to fix or what you're trying to do in your golf swing, and then be able to work on the right pieces, right? But what happens with golf is we tend to focus so much on, how we're hitting the ball today. What do we think we need to change in our swing? And then how do I make that change in my swing while I'm on the driving range? And so we're trying all these different positions. We're trying all these different moves. We're trying to, we're trying to make these changes at full speed, basically.
Right.
And the way that Casey described it is like it's physically impossible to do that. Like if you put yourself on camera and you watch yourself trying to make these changes, you're going to see that you're really not making many changes. And we have to step back and break some of these things down. And if there's one little piece that you're trying to work on, so for me personally, when I went through a lesson with Casey, we're working on me, really just dialing in my pressure shift from my trail leg to my front leg as I'm in my transition. So when I get to the top of my backswing, I tend to get onto my left toes, on my front leg before I start to come down, which kind of brings me into a bit of a leaning forward, kind of an over the top move. So I have to work on getting my weight shifted a little bit, or my pressure shifted over a little bit to my left leg before I start to rotate, which, is for me, as I slow it down and do it, it feels super, super awkward. And so as he said, like, if it feels really awkward for you to do this in slow motion, why would you ever think you can do it at full speed?
Oh yeah.
And, and so then what happens is, if we take that example of me working on that, if all he did was say, okay, now go just try to shift your weight when you're hitting golf balls. Well, now I'm going to go out and I'm going to either go play or I'm going to go to the range and I'm going to work on just shifting my weight, hitting golf balls. And I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it and I'm going to hit a couple bad shots. And let's say I'm super diligent and I hit 50 bad shots, but I'm like, nope, Casey told me this is what I need to do. Eventually I'm going to get pissed and I'm going to get frustrated because it's not working, right? I'm worried about what the result is, where the ball is going, what's happening with the ball. I feel like I'm doing what he's telling me to do, but odds are I really am not, because I'm trying to do this at full speed. So the point of what I wanted to talk about today is that's where knowing what you're trying to do and then take that into the gym setting and know what exercise or what movement pattern you're working on, and then start to work on that without having these expectations of whatever result. So, get away from the club, get away from hitting a ball, get away from being on the driving range, and work on grooving that little feeling first before you can then take it out and expect to play well. Now, there's going to be times when you're going to play. There's going to be times when you are going to go to the range, and yeah, you're still going to work on it, but you have to kind of let go of those expectations that you're going to be perfect and that you're going to get it right. You have to just keep trusting that you're working on that proper move. So for me, what I'm working on is, if I am down here in the pit, I'm even doing something as simple as, like with the EFDs now, as I'm doing my rotations in the morning, I'm working on, shifting from my one side to the other side and then doing my rotation, just really slowly ingraining that, making it almost a 2-piece move when really in the golf swing, it's going to feel more like a 1-piece move, and kind of understanding what that is. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to go grab a rubber band and I'm going to go pretend like I'm swinging a golf club, and I'm going to try to mimic everything that is going on in my swing, because as we've talked about, that's not how the golf swing works either. So it's not just about, okay, well, I'm just going to go make it look like a golf swing. No, I need to know what specific movement am I working on? What are kind of the muscles, or what are some of the feelings that I'm trying to get out of that? And then as I get a little bit better, I can start to bring in more complexity into that movement, or I can then start to go hit some little short shots. So yesterday I was in the pit just working on just very little chips, but feeling that little pressure shift, and then my rotation, pressure shift, then rotation, and being able to bring that in. So you're going to hear a great conversation with Casey, really diving into his step-by-step process. And then then we kind of talk about how we work with clients together, because a lot of my clients are working with him and his are working with me. So how we take what he's working on with them, or showing them and teaching them, and then how Casey and I will communicate, okay, this is what Rich needs to work on. He needs to work on his pressure shift, or he needs to work on his posture, or maintaining his posture. And now how are we going to then take that to be utilized in the gym? And what does that look like in the gym? Because it's not going to be the full focus of our exercises. It's, that's where you then bring that's one little component. So we're still going to do our traditional push, pull, squat, hinge, lunge, rotate, all the things that we would normally do. But if there's an exercise that might incorporate a little bit of that piece, then we're going to kind of bring some attention to that. We're going to put some focus on it. Or at the very end of the workout, we'll even just break it down simply into that one little move that we're trying to make.
Yeah, it's just, how do you, like if I want to, and I don't know how this works, like if I'm continually slicing, which you've seen me play, some days it's power fade, most days it's a slice. Like, how does Casey get from, okay, Casey, I've got this problem. Now, what do I work on in the gym? Is it based on getting on the TrackMan, or how does he kind of diagnose that problem?
Yeah. So really he looks at 3 different things. And this is what he had me hooked up on. So it was kind of cool because I got to see all of this in action. He has first the TrackMan, which the TrackMan, that gives us the ultimate results, right? Like that's going to give us, what was your launch angle? What was your swing path? What kind of contact did you make? What was your smash factor? What was your speed? All of those. He said, so, that's ultimately what we're trying to get, is better results off of the club face. That's what every golfer wants.
Right.
But that's kind of the last piece of the puzzle. And that's only going to give you so much information. That doesn't tell you necessarily what went on to get the club to the ball at that moment and how it got there. So then he looks at what your feet are doing. So that would be like a body track mat or a swing catalyst or any of these other foot pressure sensor systems. And again, I know that obviously everybody doesn't have access to all of this stuff, right? But this gives us a bit of a glimpse into what some of the best teachers in the world are doing with their players, and what these guys like on the Netflix show, like what kind of testing all of these guys are going through. So he's looking at your feet, and then he's also looking at the 3D K-motion system, or 3D sensors, which is your shoulder, your pelvis, your posture, and being able to see how the body is moving in space. What's the sequence and firing patterns of your torso, your hands, your hips, right? So when he is looking at all of this stuff, it's all coordinated together. So when I take a swing and I hit a ball, for every single swing, he sees what pattern my feet made, or the pressure through my feet. he sees what my body did, what the sequencing of my body was. And when I say that, I mean, in my downswing, are my hips starting first, then my shoulder and trunk, then my hands? Or for many of us, and this was my case, it was the hips start first, but then the hands were going, and then the trunk, so it was a little bit out of sequence. And then he kind of pieces those together and can see, based on how the feet are working, how the body's working, what are the things that aren't lining up? What are the inconsistencies there? What are the sequencing patterns that are off a little bit? And so when he saw that my sequence was off a little bit, he then said, okay, well, what's causing the sequence to be off? He looked down at how my feet were acting on the ground, and he said, oh, this is what's going on. You get to a good spot at the top of your backswing, but then when you go to transition, instead of getting your weight shifted over to your left side and then being able to rotate, your weight kind of goes forward a little bit first, and then you start to rotate, then you get shifted totally onto your left. So basically he's able to see, like he would take you, Ryan, and he'd say, okay, so here's what we're seeing with the TrackMan. Your ball is going left to right. You've got this much spin on it. Here's your angle of attack. Here's all the stuff. But he would say, okay, now what's causing that to happen? What's your body doing that's forcing you to bring the club to that position?
Right.
And a lot of times he said the first thing that I will then really look at is, well, how are their feet interacting first? Because everything starts from the feet. And if the feet look like they're working well, then he's going to go up the body a little bit and see, okay, well, if I look at the 3D motion of the pelvis and the trunk and how all that's interacting, what am I going to see there? Is it a posture thing? Is the posture changing, up and down? Are they lacking a side bend at a certain point? And then he's going to look at those different pieces there and say, okay, well, this is where we see a little inconsistency. And one of the biggest things that we all have problems with is the consistency of the golf swing. And so for me, he was saying, when you get into this position, that just throws your body off a little bit. It's a very inconsistent, your body's having trouble balancing that position. So of course it's going to be hard for you to repeat where your club is every single time. And so that's what I thought was really cool, is I could see him like diagnosing, taking all of these different pieces. And it wasn't just, because a lot of golf pros will work with a TrackMan.
Oh yeah.
And they'll see what happens with the ball flight, and they're like, okay, so your ball flight is this, and they'll say, well, obviously your club's doing this, so you've got an over the top swing, so we got to fix that. Casey then would take it a step further. Well, why is it an over the top swing? What's causing that? Is your arm coming too much internal? Are you rotating forward? Like what's the cause there? So he kind of whittles it back down to the root cause, which is what we talk about when we look at anything physical related in our bodies from an injury standpoint. Like, what's the root cause versus what's the symptom that we're seeing, right?
Yeah. Usually your back hurts, but it's never really your back.
Yeah. And when he looks at these pieces, even that kind of stuff can show up. So Casey, when they're doing this data collection for different athletes, like he goes up to Chicago and does this with a lot of hockey players, and we'll watch the way that they skate. What's happening with their pelvis. Is their pelvis rotating? Is their pelvis going, as they skate, is it going up and down, side to side, which is more what they want to see. He said that they see a lot of this. They want to see a little bit more of the pelvis going like that. And in fact, that's a little bit what he wants to see in the golf swing. When you go into your backswing, he says many times we're trying too much to rotate, where, and we're not talking swaying, but we want to see a little bit of that pressure shift one way, pressure shift the other way. And that puts the body in a better position to let the body rotate instead of us forcing it to rotate when it's not in the proper position. I know this is hard to kind of visualize without seeing a nice, good picture or video of something. But you can then, when you're collecting all this data and you're seeing what the best players in the world do versus what the amateurs do, you can start to develop these patterns of, okay, what's the most efficient way for the body to move in these positions. And when looking at a golf swing, like he did the very first time that we ever got together, he looked at my swing and really looked at the data of the swing and said, you probably have back issues when you play golf, don't you? And it all had to do with the way that my posture was, and the way that I didn't maintain my posture when I got into my backswing, kind of overextended the low back. And you can see all that stuff with this 3D capture, and it's pretty amazing. So over the last several years, I've really come to appreciate where some of this tech can be so beneficial. But then we discuss, there's times where you can also just have too much stuff and you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, great, he knows all these things. Now do you have to think of 20,000 different things every time you swing a club? Which I'm sure is not the case.
No. So that's the thing, is the tech is for the instructor. And that's where so much of this overblown tech that we all have access to now can be very troublesome for the golfer, because we like toys. We like to get wrapped up in toys. We like to get wrapped up in looking at video of ourselves and what we're trying to fix. But the instructor needs to know what the puzzle pieces are and needs to be able to diagnose that and figure out what that is. Then he relays to the golfer, or me in this situation, like, I'm sure there's 15 things that he was seeing going wrong, right? He picks the most important
Minimum, right?
And says, this is where we need to start. Because in many situations, if you just pay attention to this one piece, that's going to make so much more of your swing that much more efficient. And as you get better with that, other things are going to kind of fall in line. If we try to fix 5 things, you don't know what's really working, what's really not. Are you doing them? Are you not doing them? So here, so I only have one drill that I'm supposed to be doing. And just do that. Just work on that little shift while you're practicing some of these moves, while you're hitting balls, while I'm working out. If there's a situation where I find in an exercise, like, oh, this is one where I could kind of concentrate on a little bit of that shift, that's where I'll bring that in. But, and sure, if I were to, I went and hit golf balls this past weekend. We took the boys out for my son's birthday, and they went to the simulator and played on the simulator. And I went and hit balls for a little while. And yeah, your thoughts start to stray and you start to think of these other things. And then it's like, nope, bring it back down to just go back to the one thing. But it really does. It's almost refreshing, because if you can let the other stuff go and just remember that you're focusing on one piece, and did I do it or did I not do it? It starts to make it easier. Now, ask me after I go play my round at TPC and I'm really trying to execute, like, that's going to be hard. That could be very hard if I'm really, worried about the results, because obviously you want to play well, you want to go do well.
Of course.
So you can't. And we discussed that too. Like, you have to be willing to accept how hard you want to work and how much you want to give up, depending on how much you want to change. If you want to just go and play better with the current swing that you have and just make a couple tweaks, that's one thing. But if you really want to make some real change, or if you need to make some real changes, are you willing to do that? Because that's going to take time. It's going to take effort. It's going to take frustration. And it's going to take this situation where you're not able to go expect results while you're making some of these changes. And thankfully it's not like I need a whole overhaul of my swing. And, like we had another one of the trainers, Buddy Eric, he went and took a lesson from Casey. And Eric has a really good golf swing, and he played a lot of golf last year. And so he was hitting irons for Casey, and Casey had him all hooked up, and he's like, so what do you need help with? He's like, well, I hit my irons pretty well, but he's like, yeah, your irons are good. You don't screw with anything. And then, you know, like how often do you hear a golf instructor say that? Like golf instructors are known for always finding something wrong.
Oh, right.
He's like, you're good. Like just go practice.
Right.
Your swing, the mechanics of your swing are good. But he said, my driver, I don't hit nearly as far as I think I should based on, it's like, I'm usually right up there with guys with my irons or better, but like my driver, I haven't been hitting very well at all. And so then he's like, well, let's pull out the driver and look. And they noticed one little thing primarily when he was swinging his driver. And so that's what he's working on, just that one little piece. And Eric's like, holy shit, man, I've been watching so many videos, and I'd see Eric in the pit. He's like doing all these little moves, and he's like, there's no way I would have found and fixed what Casey did. Like, there's no way I would have just kind of like stumbled upon what he wants me to do. And I was trying all this goofy shit that I was seeing in all these videos and Instagram and trying 10 different things, and that wasn't working and this wasn't working. He's like, it's so relieving to just have one little thing to work on.
No kidding. This sounds like WebMD. Like Eric, he's got something, you know, buddy Eric has something wrong. And then he goes to WebMD and it's 20,000 different things that are wrong with him. Well, how do I fix it? And there are 100 different ways to fix the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And we need the doctor, if you will, like Casey to diagnose it. And I assume that those three things are not just spitting out an answer for him that says, hey, Instructor Casey, this is what's wrong with Buddy Eric, and this is what's wrong with Bodine.
No, I mean, what's pretty neat is that the K motion, which unfortunately we just found out that K motion is kind of backing out of the golf space. But Casey's Institute helped those guys develop that whole system, by the way, the programming and everything of K motion. But so the K motion system, it does spit out. I could send you my report even, Ryan. It spits out a report. Do I still have that up? Hold on. I don't. And it has like a breakdown of where, and it highlights it in like green, yellow, and red of different pieces, like your transition, your backswing, your setup posture, all of these different things. And it like highlights it in red if that is one of your issues. So it really is pretty intuitive. Now, he then goes above and beyond and takes that, looks at that, also analyzes that with the foot patterns, analyzes that with the TrackMan stuff. So all of it doesn't come together and spit out, hey, Jeff needs to do this. But to some degree, it does. You know, it kind of shows you. We've talked with the Golf Tech guys, you know, and they've got their system of like, these are the 6 big things that we're looking at. And I'm sure theirs is the same way when, you know, somebody's, you know, at the top of their backswing, it's looking at the tilt of their shoulders, and it'll tell you, it'll, you know, highlight if that's off or if somebody's out of one of those little positions. So yeah, in some way, shape, or form, it does give you a little bit of a spit out analysis of this is wrong, but it doesn't go that step further and say, okay, now here's the exercise, or here's an exercise to go fix it. That's where Casey and I, in some situations, will be talking about somebody, and he'll say, this is what we're working on. And then we'll sit there and we'll brainstorm, or we even have some drills already that we've put together that we're working with this person. Or we'll say like, hey, you know, like he's working on this. I'll say, what do you think about XYZ? You know, like this little motion where he's got to transition his weight over to the 1 foot and work on his balance a little bit and whatnot. So.
Okay. One thing that we've got a couple questions. Go ahead, Marina.
Did you sort of realize after this session with him whether there was something in your body, like mobility wise, or, well, I can't imagine strength wise, but mobility wise, what you need to sort of work on after you had that session?
I wouldn't say that it was necessarily a mobility thing. It could be maybe a little bit of tightness in my left hip, like internal rotation, but I would say that it was probably more just a couple bad habits that I had built up over the years. and just never really totally understanding the right sequence. I think from other sports and, just ingrained patterns that I'm used to, like I think like a baseball swing, as much as a baseball swing is a rotational sport, there's nuances between that and golf. And so many of us tend to be a little bit more like upper body dominant. I think that comes a little bit from just rotational sport and baseball and things like that. Whereas hockey is probably one of the ones that transitions over to golf so well, because hockey is a much more of a body rotation as you're hitting a hockey puck. You're also having to transition onto that front foot. If you ever see a hockey player hit a slap shot, many times they'll hit that slap shot and they'll only be on their front foot.
Yep.
They'll only be on that, like if you're a right-handed hockey player, they'll be on that left leg and their right leg will kick out, almost Scotty Scheffler like, will kick out from underneath them. So they have to naturally think about it, they're balancing on that little thin blade. So they have to get their body positioned properly over that hip, and then that hip can rotate really well. Their whole body has to rotate, otherwise they're going to tip off of the skate, right? So same thing has to happen with golf. But in baseball, you see we lean back on that back foot, watch a guy hit a home run, or these guys in the home run derby. They're rotating, their hips are rotating, everything, but many times they'll lean back on that back foot, and that's not a good golf swing, right?
No.
Like that's dangerous. In fact, Rhino, I would say that's probably more of like a pattern of swing that we would see where you tend to get a little bit, sometimes even a big slice. Because if you open up your hips and you lean back like that, not same with playing soccer. If you lean back, that ball's going sky high. That's not going on target where you want it.
I know I do it.
Yeah. So Marina, I would say that was the thing that I really noticed, is it was more of a patterning thing. And that's why, to break it down into a simple little move, you're going to hear Casey has a great analogy about, like, you have to learn the letters of the alphabet, like the letters of your golf swing, in order to then form sentences and then be able to, compose a novel. But if you only have, if you've only learned 5 letters and you start to try to spell words, you can only spell so many words, right? So unless you start to learn some of these other building blocks of movement, you're only going to be able to achieve a certain level before you reach your max capacity. And if you want to go any further, sometimes you got to go back to learning the letters and learning new letters in order to then be able to spell better words, more words.
But my problem is, I had a lesson yesterday, and I'm quite similar, probably like you, easily casting it. So, I got to come down like that. So, you train and you do that specific drill or movement over and over and over again. So after an hour, your wrist is starting to hurt, or your back starts to hurt. So you got to be really careful when you do that specific. What I need to do, for example, I can't overdo it, but I do it in the bathroom. I do it everywhere. I do it in EFDs. I do it I try not only to do it on the range, but just visualizing it in my dreams, and try to come down, and because on the track, when I got 20 yards more when I started do that. So I know it's hard to do, but the results are just amazing if you just persevere. But the injury side is always sort of a problem. You've got to be really careful.
Yeah, you have to balance the massive repetitions with just the body's ability to recover and heal, right? And make sure that you're not causing any kind of overuse, overstress kind of an issue with it. And that's just a matter of having a little patience too, and letting it take time, and not being able to muscle your way through and like, I want it all now. And sometimes it's just, you got to trust the process of, slow and steady wins the race. Because if you do go too too fast, if you do try to do it too much, then yeah, then something hurts. And then even if you kind of push through that a little bit, odds are you're going to then compensate a little bit, because anytime we have discomfort or pain, you're going to try to work your way around that a little bit. And so then you may not be doing it exactly the way that you should be, because it kind of hurts when you do it because you overdid it. And now you're ingraining another pattern that you don't want. So you just got to be a little careful with that.
Yep. I know when we talk about like our crew and like us being golf nuts, Marina might be at the top of that list.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, she's into it, man.
Yep.
So one of the things I like that Casey did, and we talk about this all the time, like with the habits stacking, like why people fail is because they're doing too much too fast. I
Mhm.
love the fact that, myself, I probably have 15 things wrong. And he just tells me, fix this one thing. Okay. And then we'll add another and another and another
Right.
and another. Because, and again, everybody fails when they're here and they try to think about the next 15 things they're trying to do from here to here.
Right.
You can't possibly hit a golf ball straight consistently if that's the case.
Yeah, because if you don't, if you look at what some of the bigger pieces are from our standpoint, it's like, okay, great question for Marina. Was it a mobility issue? Was it a strength issue? Well, we know that, the biggest things that we need to worry about are, can our hips rotate? Can we rotate at our trunk? Do we have the proper rotation in the shoulder? Looking at all those things, is our core strong enough? Okay, so let's take those out of the equation. We've kind of checked those boxes. Yeah, that's all good. Then you got to find like, okay, well, what are the big pieces of the swing then? What are the things that he's going to be looking at that make the most, or that are most important? That's going to be, are you transitioning your weight properly? When you get into your backswing, are you on your trail side? When you get through the ball, are you going to be on your front side? Can you rotate? Can you keep your posture? Some of those different pieces. And it's like, okay, well, if you can't do those, well, let's not worry about the speed of your hands and you releasing the club
Right.
and all that, because if you can't do those, your golf swing's already going to be a huge compensation, a huge combination of compensations, So what are the couple things that we really need to grasp? And then like being able to rotate properly from your hip, not standing up in your golf swing, all of these different pieces, because like anything else, you can't focus on those little 1% things if you aren't taking care of the biggest components that are most important first.
Right. So does he have like almost like a hierarchy of each golf swing? Like this is the ultimate thing, or the first thing you need to fix, the second. So in terms of like weight loss, if someone came to me or came to you and said, yeah, I need to lose weight. And then we took a look, oh, you're drinking a gallon of soda a day. Okay, you need to stop there. Like liquid calories, that's your number one thing to fix. So is there like an equivalent of that to a golf swing? Like since we started our feet, okay, let's fix that first, or is it kind of like Swiss cheese and you just plug the holes as needed based on each individual golfer?
I think Casey would tell you that that's exactly what they're working to come up with, some sort of structure and principles around it. That's one of the reasons why they're doing so much data collection, is to figure out, okay, what are those components? What are the things that make the most difference with the least amount of effort of change, and to kind of build in those principles, hierarchy, whatever you want to call it. I think at this moment in time, he would say they're not defined yet, but that's what we're getting now. Him working with an individual, he knows what he's going to look at, and he's going to be able to kind of piece those out. But to just say, hey, for everybody, first we need to look at this, we need to look at this, we need to look at this, I don't know that it's there yet. And I think really that's kind of a big piece of their mission with the Institute.
Yeah, this thing's got like AI written all over it, where it's you take all that data and you figure out the common thread amongst people that had this and then became good by fixing this, and just the amount of data that they would have to compile is crazy, but that would be pretty slick.
What's cool is they've been doing this for so long. Like I can't remember when they started the Institute, but he was saying that like they've been compiling this stuff, and it's hard because you have all this stuff, but yeah, we're getting closer to be able to doing something with it on a bigger scale,
Mhm.
because only so many people he can go see, they can bring to their institute. And obviously that's kind of where my head goes is, well, how can we bring this out to the masses? How can we bring this out to the 18 strong crew in the golf world
Right.
and, be able for the everyday golfer to somehow get a little analysis and a little clarity on, well, okay, well, what do I need to fix? What's going on with my swing? Because I'm tired of looking at YouTube videos and Instagram posts, right?
Right.
So he said that's really the challenge is, what do we do with it all now? How do we take it? They're able to make it a little more concise and divvy it down and analyze it, but what can you do with that? And that's the rub right there.
There's the rub.
Trying to really piece it together to how can they help way more people with all of this information.
Just
Well-
one comment as a Mind Factor coach. I love all this what you're saying, and I'd love to be able to do this session like you've done. But what Carl Morris always says, that luckily we didn't start to speak before we started to crawl, which means that, all these, we would never have been able to walk or crawl if we had been able to speak first.
That's so good. And Marina, you'll be happy to know that we do talk about internal versus external focus
Good.
in the
Yeah.
podcast. So because obviously we've talked about that so many times that, like ultimately focusing externally on what result you want to happen with the ball, with the golf club is going to be way more effective in the long run. And that's where Casey delineates, when to use what and how he kind of separates those out. Because really, when you go on the golf course, and he talks about this all the time, when you go on the golf course, you need to be on autopilot. You need to be out there focusing on what are your results going to be. So we do delineate between the two there, because that's a big question of mine too. Is it does the swing create the shot, or does the shot create the swing? Right, Marina?
We know the answer to that one.
That's right. That's right. So, all right,
Nice.
Ryan, I know we kind of went over there a little bit. Did you say you had a question or two? I'd be happy to
we
stick around for a
can
minute.
save them
Okay.
for next week if you want. There a couple of as I was going through, we addressed just kind of shooting the bull, and these others are a little bit kind of off the beaten path. But I'll actually reach out to these people directly, and then we'll talk about it next week, because it's obviously beneficial for all of us to hear the answer.
Yep. Sounds good. And I do just want to give you guys a little bit of a heads up. So my intent is to get some more of these podcasts filmed and recorded. The only issue is that the gentleman that I use to do the videoing, a lot of times it's going to be a Thursday afternoon that is available for him to do that. And that's one thing with the podcast is it takes a lot of coordination to set up with not just the guest, but now throwing a third party into that mix, and the fact that they have to be here in studio. So if there's a couple times when a Q&A call might either have to be adjusted or just postponed for the week, it's likely going to be either because we're golfing, because that is a rule,
That's number one.
or because we're trying to get some podcasts set up, and I'm going to try to do it where we can maybe even batch two of them together so we can get a couple recorded in the same day to maximize our time. So just want to give you guys a heads up there.
Cool. You know what would be cool is if we did this as we're doing the podcast. You could ask questions during the podcast too. Does anybody do that?
We did that live during COVID. That was a little too much for my brain to handle.
It's a lot, I know.
When I was trying to record, because when we were doing it that way, we had it set up. In fact, I did that on some of the bigger podcasts, like I think with the Joe Buck one.
I was going to say Joe Buck. I know we did.
And so like, as I'm trying to concentrate and interview and talk and think through questions in my head, there's also questions scrolling on the screen. And that almost gave me a panic attack. So I'm not going to commit to doing those at the moment. Now, if we had a couple questions from the crew that we could, we could even do a little segment at the end of the podcast, we could get some questions ahead of time that I could then ask. That'd be kind of cool. And we could just
Or,
put that little,
right, as I say, or I mean, I can moderate questions so you don't have to look at them.
Yeah.
Let's think about this.
we'll think about it. Either way, I think there is a place to have some Q&A questions in the podcast. So I think that would be pretty cool.
That'd be awesome. Okay.
All right.
In the meantime, everybody have a great weekend.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Catch you later.
See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Adios.